Hello, Bernard Keeley here. I thought I'd talk about four ways that you can increase your turnover by following what we call the marketing equation. Now, the way this works is if you can increase the number of leads you generate and then increase the conversion rate, that will increase your number of customers. So that will increase your volume. But if you can also increase your prices, and that means your average prices. Now, I've spoken before about various strategies to increase your average prices without putting your prices up. But if you can also put your prices up as well, then that will give you the other half of the volume times price equals turnover. So we've talked about various ways of getting your average price per transaction up through things like having cross-sell options, upsell options, different categories of membership or quality of service, different bundles, different packages. But here's ways now that you can go about actually increasing your prices as such. Now, the thing about increasing your prices as such is you can only actually do that if you can increase the demand for your product. So in other words, you have to have something about what you do that makes you stand out from the competition, and that means that you're not competing on price, because as soon as you start to compete on price, you can't really put your prices up without losing business. So that's what today is about. So here we have some ideas as to how you can actually go about raising your prices. So there's four things you need to have really. You need to have something good to say. You have to say it to the right people. You have to say it well, and you have to say it often. So I'm going to explain all of those things. So the something good to say basically means that you know who your ideal customer is, you know why they buy, and then you innovate what you do to give them more of what makes them buy. So it could be that you provide extra services, extra features, extra benefits, extra convenience. You have ways of guaranteeing what you do to reduce the risk. You offer better terms. You just offer more functionality on what you provide. But something in there, you have to give them something that is better than what the competition does, and that it's actually focused on what motivates them to buy. The second thing is you have to therefore target it to a specific ideal customer or client, which means that you have to understand both the demographics, i.e. age, income, where they live, etc., and also the psychographics of your ideal customer. Now, the psychographics are what is the conversation going on in their head, what is the thing that will motivate them to buy. And generally it's a negative. So they always say sell to the negative, but don't sell in a negative way. So what I mean by that is if someone's got an issue such as they can't work out how to bring their product to the marketplace, well, that's the negative. But you wouldn't say you must be really worried about the fact that you can't bring your product to the marketplace. You would say something along the lines of, are you interested in a way of more effectively bringing your product to the marketplace? So you're saying it in a positive way, but you're targeting the negative. And that's called the hot button. So 70% of the time, the hot button will be a negative. You then have to say it well. Now, what we mean by saying it well is you have to follow what's called the conversion equation. The first conversion equation basically says, here's the problem or issue you've got, which is called an interrupt. We can offer you a solution, which means I've still got your attention because I'm now engaging with you. So it's called the engage, and I can offer you a solution. The educate, which is the next E, says this is how it works. And the thing about the educate is you explain in copious detail why it is that what you do will solve their problem better than the others. Now, the thing is here, if you take the time and trouble to explain in more detail what you do compared to your competitors, then people are going to assume that you're better than the competition. Simple human nature. And then you have what's called a risk-free offer, i.e. to find out more, give me your details, I'll send you information which will help you on what's called your buyer's journey to make your decision. And this offer has to be risk-free. So it needs to be typically pieces of information, ideas, guides, rather than, buy me now because I'm offering you a discount or whatever. So that's the four-step process. You then need to say it often. Now, what we mean by say it often is that typically buyers, prospects need 5, 8 plus contacts before they're ready to buy. The big mistake that most people make is they give up too soon. So it's been said that 80% of sellers give up too early and 80% of buyers need the multiple points of contact. So what happens is the 80% of buyers eventually buy from the 20% of sellers who nurture them. And this is called what's called a drip campaign. So you supply bits of information to help them make their buyer's decision. Now, that's how you get people to be more willing to buy from you and eventually pay higher prices. And the thing is, you have to highlight in your educate bit here, you have to highlight both features and benefits. Now, the reason you have to do that is because people buy emotionally, which means they buy based on benefits. So the way you highlight benefits is you talk in sensual language. So you talk using taste, sight, hearing. So you describe what you do, but you appeal to the various senses. So if it was an ice cream, you would talk about the texture, you would talk about the flavor, I don't know what else you talk about with an ice cream, because maybe it's not the best example, but I think you followed the, oh, if there was any sort of nice aroma, you talk about the sense of smell. So the more senses you can involve, the better. You explain in long detail. So it's been said that long copy beats short copy, which it does. But when you say long, that means long on information, but concise in terms of style. So you would use short words, short sentences, short paragraphs, concise in style, but covering lots of information. You would go into detail. The more detail, the better. So you wouldn't just say, many customers like this. You would say 43% of customers have been proven to buy 7 of these every month because 87% of them said. You would be as specific as you can, and you would also highlight the fact that there's no risk. So you'd always include reducing the risk, because risk is a big emotional factor. People are scared of the risk involved of buying something new. So that's what they buy on, but they always justify it on features, because one of the biggest fear factors of the lot is fear of criticism. Now, if someone buys something here and they can't justify it here to whoever they need to, it could be family, could be colleagues at work, could be the boss at work. If they haven't got enough information here to justify what they've done, then their fear of ridicule will take over, fear of criticism, and they won't buy. So you need to have both things in your marketing. And when you do all of that, the people who do this benefit from the 80-20 rule, because there's the first mover advantage that says that although nothing happens short term, eventually what happens is people begin to see these people doing this as being better. They start to buy from them in greater proportion, and you only have to do these things sort of 3, 4, 5% better than your competitors to start being the business that gets 80% of the market rather than 20% share between the rest. And it's the way it works, and it's called a tipping point. You get to a certain stage where things take off because you're doing all these things well and many of your competitors aren't. So that is the way that you use strategic marketing. It's called strategic because we're accompanying the buyer on the buyer's journey. This is how strategic marketing enables you to get away from competing on price, to be able to increase your prices, which means you can increase your turnover, and you can quite easily get to the stage where both your volume goes up and your price goes up, and you could double your turnover, and you could realistically do that in a few months. 180 days is 6 months, and it works for any business. So I hope you found that useful and informative. So this is Bernard Keavy explaining how you can double your turnover in 180 days or less, maybe.